Welcome to Mad About Money. I'm Maddy Alexander-Grout, and this is the show where we talk all about people's money and entrepreneur stories. I'm here with Gavin Prime, who's founder of Inzodiac. Gavin, it's lovely to have you. Tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
You're so welcome.
Where do I start? Where do you want me to start, Maddy?
Start at the beginning, as early as you can. No, we'll move on to that. So just tell us a little bit about Inzodiac and what it does.
So Inzodiac is an app that uses star sign compatibility to bring people together, to connect people in different ways. So whether that's through dating or through finding friends or finding business associates, Inzodiac is about that compatibility piece. So you'll know there's apps out there that do like horoscopes and the readings and all that kind of stuff. And there's obviously tons of dating apps and that side of it. We kind of fill that gap in the middle where the people that are interested in astrology, star signs, and that kind of area, we're putting those people together.
I love that. As somebody who is like, I mean, I don't think I'm quite woo-woo a little bit. Like, I've got loads of tarot cards and like, I believe in moonology and all of that kind of like more spiritual stuff.
Yeah.
Not the Mystic Meg kind of thing. Did she die actually?
I'm sure she died. She was my very first exposure to astrology.
Yeah. I mean, I might be completely making that up. Please don't take this as news, people, in case she is still alive. But I'm sure I read somewhere that she died.
Yeah,
but
I'm not sure. I don't know.
No,
but
I find it all really, really interesting though. And as somebody, I'm not a typical Virgo. Just going to throw it out there. I think I'm not sure whether or not you could be a typical Virgo if you've got ADHD, to be honest, because like they're supposed to be all like tidy and organized, and I am so not that at all.
I think there's a lot more that goes into it as a person and a personality than you kind of have the generic traits, right? That you're saying I'm not a typical Virgo, but I think when you delve into more your natal charts, which is more about you uniquely, your time of birth and things like that, I think you'll start seeing, and even more if you team that up and almost kind of double it up with your Chinese astrology as well. You start finding a lot more similarities there. I mean, it's not natal chart matching, it's not entirely necessary for bringing people together and on the compatibility side, but it's really good for your own readings and your own. So I think when you look at it like that, you might see more familiar things rather than the more generic traits that you think of for Virgo. You say, I'm not a typical Virgo. No, you might not be a typical Virgo, but you might be the exact Virgo you're supposed to be.
Oh, okay. I like that. I do like that. So how did you get involved with all of this? What's your backstory?
So the origin story of Inzodiac, or just how I got into?
Let's start with you. Like, what was your childhood like, particularly kind of around money and thoughts around money?
We were poor. We didn't have much at all. I was raised on a council estate in Somerstown, which is kind of in the back ends of Camden and King's Cross.
Okay. I love Camden.
Yeah, I love Camden as well. When I go to Camden Station, I'm home. But really, that's not the part where I was brought up, but it is still, lovely. And my dad was a butcher, and my mum was a stay-at-home mum with me and my three sisters. And we didn't have much at all, And we're fortunate that Dad worked in the butcher's, so we had fresh meat for dinner.
Nice. I mean, that probably has its perks.
Yeah, which was great. But being brought up in council estates, people talk about it and talk about the poverty side and the challenges, especially now with some of the things that happen in crime and knife crime and stuff like that. But back then there was also a community element to it that was, I tried to explain it to my wife. My wife's been brought up in like a 3-bed semi in Colindale, like her whole life, so she's never experienced anything like it. And for all the arguments and kind of rubbish things that you see living in the council estate, it's that community thing that you don't get anywhere else.
Yeah.
really.
No, I totally get that. So I grew up in a village and I didn't live on a council estate, but I used to go and play with all the council estate kids. And it was like everybody knows each other, everybody's
Mm.
friends, people like go out and stand out with a cup
That's a
of
good and a
coffee
bad
and
thing.
yeah, well, yeah, I mean, I guess there is that as well, but it was always like I I think there was a bit of a divide because there was like the council estate end of the village, and then there was like the posh end of the village, and I was
Mm.
definitely the posh end of the village. But I was friends with all the people who lived in the council estate, so I think like we did kind of connect. But I was the odd one out. There wasn't like because there were other kids who were in like the posh end of the village who didn't go and play with the council estate kids. So I think
Yeah.
there was a bit of a like possible divide there. But yeah, I did definitely get the sense of community for sure.
Mm. I've taken my kids there, not that they'll remember now. I don't think. I maybe need to take them back sometime. Looks more like a prison now. They've locked all yeah, they've locked all the big estate that I lived on. They've kind of locked it off. So
Oh,
you've got to gain access to the estate, in a
oh.
sense, because it wasn't like one tower block or something
I've got
like
some
this.
like Walking Dead vibes going through my brain. It's
Yeah, it
probably
was a
not like
really
that.
big estate, had like a couple of greens in the middle of it to play on, so and a football pitch. So, but it's all
Yeah.
been locked off, and it's yeah, we've been really into Walking Dead lately. So funny you say that. But yeah, I have taken them to say, look, this you're used to, like my wife living in a house and living in a nice area, but this is where I was brought up. This is the kind this was my environment.
And
The
what was
football
your
pitch was concrete.
nice? Yeah. What was your kind of work history? What was your first job?
So I wasn't great at school at all. I really, really struggled with numbers, and I still do.
Mm,
And I've recently found out why that is. But I really struggled, and there were things there were concepts I just couldn't grasp. And they've generally, like I say, tended to be around all the numbers. So
yeah.
maths, economics, not home economics, like political economics.
Yeah.
My head just I even the most basic things, I just couldn't get my head around them. And the
I
way I
still
think
can't do
about,
fractions.
yeah, I don't know my times tables. I can't. I don't generally keep time very well, as in I can't remember time very well. So like you, I have to have things that pop up or things that I've written down. Sometimes when I'm driving, I can not really recognize when I've gone a little bit over, or do you see what I mean? So
Yeah.
anything to do with numbers are a little bit kind of,
Dyspraxia?
sorry,
Is it dyspraxia?
dyscalculia.
Dyscalculia, that's the
Yeah,
one.
yeah. Everyone pronounces it different as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's very, very recent for me, Maddie. I didn't know. I just thought I was a bit dim with numbers,
Oh,
as
bless
you
you.
do,
So
So
how did you find out?
so I work in a college in FE at the moment full time. So that's my full time job.
Oh, wow.
And so there's a lot of staff that I've known through support services, supported learning and stuff like that for me to have to test. But it was funny because I didn't know anything about it. I've never even heard of it. And I was sitting in the living room watching TV. I think it was a BBC News program or something like that. And their money finance person, I can't remember her name, was doing a segment on it. She had it herself. And she was going through all these different things. And I was like, that's not nothing unusual. I do that. That's not nothing unusual. That's the same with me. I don't know my times tables, and all this kind of thing. And as she went along, I got to the end of the program and thought, crap, hold on a minute.
Yeah.
If there's something here, your head starts kind of putting all those dots together that I was, from when you were young at school, and all those problems, the arguments I've had with my wife about kind of like the way we manage money, in the house, like our bills and the way we do it, the way I think about the management of money is very different from the way my wife thinks about it. And
Does
they're
she,
not,
does she look after the finances in the
she
house, or
does
do you?
now. She does now. See, the thing is, it isn't a problem. It isn't so much a problem me spending money or spending money on things that we don't. I'm not like that. I'm actually quite frugal, but it's just being
Budgeting.
able to make sure that something's coming out of the right place at the right time, that's where I'd struggle. See,
Yeah.
whereas I would prefer to create lots of little pots that make sense to me. So
Have you looked at Starling as a bank account?
I've seen Starling.
So Starling,
haven't-
I've been talking about Starling probably for the last like 2 years, but I recently switched, and you can do exactly that. You can set up different pots for different things, and it's so good. It also tells you every single day how much you're spending, gives you a breakdown of what you spent it on. It's brilliant. Such a good bank. Have a look at it.
I say to my wife, because we moved to this house about, I don't know, 18 months ago or so now, and we still haven't sold our last house.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hard.
So that's been rented out.
Okay.
So
Okay. Well, at least you're getting some income from it. That's good.
Yes, accidental. But we're doing that. And so in my head, everything's completely separate for me. My wife will bring everything income into one pot, expenditure out, as a normal person would do in that sense. But I can't do things like that. So, right, we have our gas and electricity bills for our house, which come out of our wages, which go into that account.
Yeah.
I will need another account for that. This is how my head works, and those bills and those insurances and those things should come out of that account for that thing, and then you have your savings, so all divided up. That works for me. It makes sense. But
Starling would literally change your life, I think. It would make everything that it would make everything that you struggle with probably make a bit more sense. By the way, Starling are not paying me. If they'd like to, we are looking for sponsors for this podcast.
Great plug.
Always there. So that's really interesting. So what was the process of the diagnosis?
I had to sit down and do a computer test. I can't remember all of the questions that were on the computer test. And then the lady I was doing it with asked me her own other questions that she had, which were above and beyond that computer test. And the computer test were just questions. It was trying to remember a couple of them now. Do you, for example, like what I've already said, do you know your times table up to this? Or can you remember an appointment, given to you at this time and over that time, kind of thing?
I'm wondering if maybe I've got it.
No, honestly, or have you had a lot of speeding tickets? All kind of, strange questions. To me, strange questions, but they all mean something in relation.
I have had a lot of speeding tickets and like parking fines and but I'm also dyslexic, so I'm wondering if maybe that's another thing. I want to know what
to do. So it's all to do with numbers in general, right? It's not just to do with money. It's not just to do with your financials. It's not. It's numbers in general. It's money. It's time. It's speed. My wife. My kids have been going to Greek school for God knows how long on a Wednesday evening and a Saturday, right? They go the same time every Wednesday and Saturday. I can never remember the time.
I have exactly the same thing with football, and I'm always late, like literally every single week. I'm late for school every day, like literally every day. And they've now put up a sign outside the school that says, if you're 5 minutes late every single day, you miss a week's worth of education. And I'm like, oh. But then it was like, if you're like, I'm always 5 minutes late. I'm never like 20 minutes late or anything like that. And it's always like, just as the gates are closing or just as they've closed and you have to ring the buzzer and get someone to sign you in reception. And I'm like, I've told them now, and I thought it was an ADHD thing, but I've actually told the school now that I really struggle with time. With I'm basically time blind. That's what they call it in an ADHD sense. It's like I cannot see times, and I know that I need 20 minutes to get ready for school, but I still won't get out of bed and have a shower until like 5 minutes before we have to leave, and then I don't remember how long it takes me to do my hair, but it definitely takes longer than 5 minutes, and then I'm like, oh, I'm late. I'm like, maybe I could just not wash, but I feel like that would be bad for other people. It's hard.
Because for us it was I think the biggest change for us and for me it was knowing so I can take mitigations.
Yeah.
Because then I know that it's not me, in my head, sometimes I just think I'm right with these things, it's like, no, this is right. It's because it's the only way I can process it. Right?
Yeah.
So the amount of arguments my wife and I have had over money, over time, over, being able to keep on time with things. And when when I told her about it, she went, really? And then she went, oh my God, that makes so much sense.
And that's almost exactly the same response that I had with my husband when I told him that I'd been diagnosed with ADHD. He was like, what? And I was like, yeah. So, all the times where you think I'm lazy, but I just actually can't get off the sofa. Yeah, that. He's like, oh. I mean, he still sometimes struggles with me. He struggles with me interrupting him and talking over him and doing all the things that I know I shouldn't, but I can't help. But yeah, I can imagine it's the same. Yeah, interesting.
I try and stop myself, and I've been doing it to you as well. I try and stop myself from talking over people, because the problem I've got is if I have a piece of information that needs to leave my mind, if I don't get it out, it might go, and then I won't be able to get it out again.
How do you feel about the fact that we may have just diagnosed you with ADHD as well on your first ever podcast?
I don't know. I hadn't even considered it, to be honest with you, but
it might make some sense. Go and do some research.
Yeah.
Your homework is to go and do some research and maybe understand what your brain's doing a little bit more. I am not qualified to diagnose people with ADHD, just as a caveat, like it's just a little thing. So bad at school, but you know why now. What about job wise? What how did you start your career?
I was always because we didn't have much money, right? And some of the kids, around me as well, very similar. We didn't have much, so we were always trying to think of different ways to make money.
Like Del Boy.
Yes, yeah, no, in a way. We could never have new things, right? So when the other kids were coming to school with, the new pair of Nikes, or there was a fad once where it was kickers and wallabies. I don't know if you remember.
Oh,
those.
Yeah.
And everyone had them. We some of us couldn't get them, we just couldn't afford them. So you had to try and think of other ways to make money, because you couldn't get money from your parents. That wasn't an option.
Yeah.
So if you wanted something, you had to think of something. And so we would do. We'd go around with a bucket and a sponge and offer to wash people's cars. And so it's great seeing kids still doing that, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think that's a real first start. And we were really young, and I'm talking kind of late primary school probably when we were doing that. So yeah, that was kind of the start of a thinking. It wasn't so much that we need loads of money. We need,
just a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah, and you don't have anyone, like we didn't have anyone around us, business or entrepreneurship side to tell us or teach us anything about this kind of startup world that I'm in now. I didn't know, and we didn't know anything about any of that. It was just, can we earn a little bit of money just to get the things that we want to get? We want to buy a pair of Nikes, or we want to go to the sweet shop and get a whole load of sweets and the pig out, on penny sweets. And so that's what we would do, and over time it kind of developed over a period of time. And then I remember I was in secondary school. This was my real kind of, I always refer to this experience as my real kind of switch in my head about
light bulb moment.
And I was at there's a street market in Camden. It used to be on Pratt Street, and I went with my mum, I think my nan at the time, and I was just getting into American football. I don't know why, I was just getting into it, and there was this box there, and it had, I think it was about 50 packets inside this box, and it was, the whole box was on sale for £5. And inside each packet was an American football shirt keyring and 2 bubble guns.
Okay.
Inside each packet. Oh my God, that's so cool. I was into American football. I begged my mum. I was like, Mum, please, I'll give you the money back. I'll give you the money back. Give you the money back. She bought it for me, right? She gave me a £5, which It
was a lot of money.
a fair bit of money to be
Yeah.
given. And so I bought this thing, and I opened the first couple of packets, and I got my team in the first couple of packets, which at the time I was getting into the LA Raiders. I just like this skull and crossbones kind of pirate type of. And I thought to myself, well, I've got that now, and I've got all of these, and I owe my mum a fiver. You know, what shall I do? And I took them into school. I thought, let's see if I can sell one for 50p, you know, to see how we go. And I took it in, and I sold one, and then I sold another, and then eventually I ended up in the week with like groups of kids around me, all giving me 50p or £1 to buy these little things off of me. And I went back to the market, bought another one.
Nice.
Did it again, gave my mum a £5 back. And then I was sitting on my bed. I remember counting, because it was all in coins, right? It was all 50p pounds, and I was there, you know, counting out all these 50p's and £1 coins. And my sister saw me, and she went, "Where did you get all that money?" We say all that money. I don't think there was that much there, you know, in the grand scheme of things.
Looked like
when
it was
you
a lot,
do the math, right? But but there was a lot of coins, more coins than she's seen. Where did you get all that money? I can go away. You know, that little sister, like, get out. So she went down and reported me as a drug dealer to my mum.
Amazing.
He's been stealing drugs. He's got all this money on his bed. He's counting. But I just explained to my mum what I was doing. But that was the earliest kind of memory of me thinking you can make money buying and selling things.
Yeah.
You know, in that process. Yeah, that was my earliest memory.
That's exciting. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I went through secondary school, as I said, wasn't very good. Came out of secondary school, interested in IT, interested in technology, but not really any specific route I wasn't sure on. I did a college MVQ.
Okay,
in IT, which I really, really enjoyed at the time. And it opened up more of the world to me to understand which way to go. That's when I realized the whole programming route wasn't for me, like coding. It's quite, again, if
coding, it's numbers though, isn't it? It's similar.
Exactly. If your brain doesn't work like that, coding's not going to work. But I really love the idea of creating things, but not being able to build it. It was always something in my head. But I started thinking towards networking, you know, putting computers together, linking them up in the network and all this kind of thing. And I went from job to job, to be honest with you, Maddy. And at some point I ended up as a security officer after being like a postman and a dustman and sweeping the streets and being a labourer. I've just done about every general kind of like manual job that you could.
Nice.
You know, worked in an estate agent, just been everywhere.
Did you ever do recruitment?
No, I didn't. That's my wife's game.
Saving. Yeah. It used to be mine for a while as well. Don't tell anyone. Makes you good at LinkedIn though.
Yeah. I bet.
Yeah. So how did you go from being in IT to deciding that you wanted to make a Zodiac dating app? Because that's a bit of a weird jump.
So the first one was actually a penny auction site. So I came across this company that had launched in America. I'm trying for the life of me to think of their name. I think it was like Swoop. No, it was before that. Telebids, I think they were called.
Okay.
I think. And I looked at this idea, that I've never seen something like that before. You know, and I was at that point of life where I was kind of settled. We weren't married at this point. I was settled with my wife, and everything was kind of settling down. My career was just stable, and I just wanted I wanted to do something else. I wanted to get more into business. But I didn't have anything. I didn't have anyone around me. There was no one to guide me or mentor me or any examples that I had. But I saw this thing, and I thought, I wonder if I can make that here. I wonder if I can build a version of that for over here. And so I had some money aside, and I spoke to another friend of mine who was interested in doing it with me, which was a mistake in hindsight. But and I freelanced the project out and got it built. And it was a really interesting journey, like having that coded out and going through that whole development journey at the time by myself, you know, with no kind of skill sets in project managing, anything like that. And I got the product to launch, and I launched it.
And were you passionate about astrology, or was it just a?
Well, I hadn't got to astrology at that point. I hadn't. The most I'd do is read my star sign every now and then, you know, probably, you know, and I wouldn't say it was a frequent thing. I definitely didn't read my star sign every day. Like I say, my earliest insight into astrology was when I was first able to read out of primary school. The only thing I had to read in the house was the newspaper. Practice reading. We didn't have any books, you know, like fiction books that people have in their house now. We didn't have that. It was the newspaper, and we had, you know, the most common newspapers that people had in the States. So it's the News of the World, the Sun, and the People, which were just full of junk, you know. But so you can imagine this kid who's just started to read, wants to read more. I love reading, and I still do love reading. I just can't maintain it for too long before I'm kind of nodding off, even if it's something I'm really interested in. But I really enjoy it. As a kid, I loved it. And so I'd get those newspapers and I'd just consume them like from back to front. And I'd normally start with the sport at the back and make my way to the front until I got to Sun's page 3, which was an interesting experience.
They don't do that anymore though, do they? It's a bit like, oh, you know, women should respect themselves and not get their boobs out for newspapers.
But I'd always read Mystic Meg's like thing for my star sign.
That was my favorite. I always used to read that.
And I used to think to myself, oh, I'm gonna have a good day, you know. And I used to follow it, and like it was gospel. Like, this is me today. Every single one of these is me today.
And she used to do the lottery. Do you remember how she used to do the lottery as well?
I remember her being on it. But at that point, I wasn't really following.
It used to be like, the stars are aligned and you're going to win £1 million. So like, I never did.
I chose my lottery numbers based on like things that she was saying. Like the actual numbers that I chose were based on like some of the things that she'd been printing. So yeah, it was interesting. So astrology stayed with me in the sense of I read my horoscopes, but then I had lots of friends around me as I you know, came from where I was and moved into more the suburbs in Hendon and Colindale. A lot of my friends were really into, especially the girls, oh, you're a typical Libra, and oh, this, oh, that, and it's constant, always around me. And so when the first business finished, which I can't remember what year it was now, when I had to wrap that up, and then another friend of mine came to me with another business idea, which was car detailing, which I loved. So that was all about not just cleaning, it was about that high-end finishing to cars.
Yes.
Trying to explain.
I had that done the other day and they broke my fucking air conditioning. So annoying. Like, and now I have to drive around with hot air coming out of my air conditioning, and I'm like, I really should phone them and tell them to come.
They hit the compressor or something.
They've done something, but it's not the same. Anyway,
so
different story.
It was all really kind of expensive clients, you know, Ferraris, Porsches, you know, Rolls Royce, you know, all that kind of end. And I loved it, but again, my partner, my friend and business partner at the time, he didn't want to carry it on once he had his little one, and his wife was pregnant when we started it. So once he had the little one, he didn't want to carry it on anymore.
Oh, what a
we
shame.
were working full time and we were doing that part time. So again, that was another one to wrap up. And then I thought to myself, that's it. I'm having a break. I'm not starting any more businesses. I'm having a break. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to put money into anything, and I'm just going to chill out and just see what happens. You've always, the thing is once you start, you've always got it in your head, right? You see things and you're like, there's a gap in the market there. There's a gap in the market there. Now there may not be when you get into the actual research, but you keep seeing things constantly. And I was just like that. I think it was a good while. And then I was at work. We'll go to the Inzodiac origin story now. And I was at work, and there's a colleague he's a consultant. So he would come and go kind of thing. He wasn't around very much, didn't know him very well. It's like, hi, how you doing kind of thing. And he was coming down the stairs ahead of me. I always say to people, the best way I can describe it was like he was floating down the stairs. Like I've never seen him like that. You know, he's a really good guy, really nice guy, and a really, really good friend of mine now. Really, really good friend. But I remember thinking, what is going on with this guy all of a sudden? Like, what is this change in his, you know, his appearance, his posture, kind of the way he was carrying himself was different. And he got to the bottom of the stairs and I said, Ian, what's going on? And he said, what do you mean? And I said, there's something going on with you. I said, there's something different about you right now. I can't put my finger on it, but what's going on? And he was like, you can, you know, he was doing like, we can't talk now. We'll meet for a drink outside work or something and have a chat. And I was like, yeah, I'm open to go out and have a drink and whatever. And I don't know if it was a week or two after that, we went out and he was telling me how he just asked somebody out, literally like moments before coming down the stairs, a girl at work he was really interested in over a period of time, hadn't had the kind of balls to ask her out. And then suddenly just had that gusto moment while he was talking to her and just asked her out and she said yes. And then he kind of floated down the stairs, you know, and I saw him. He was like, it was really interesting that you picked that out. Like, so for me, I was just behaving normally, going about my normal business, but you saw something that I was feeling inside rather than, you know. But he then started speaking about his dating, and because we were just talking, we didn't know each other particularly well, so we were chatting about things. He was talking about previous dates they'd been on, 2 previous dates, and I can't remember what star sign he is, he's going to kill me. I remember him saying, I'm going to make it up, okay, because I can't remember. He was like, you know, I'm a Leo and she was a Virgo, and, you know, it just wasn't quite right. But then the second date, you know, she was Sagittarius, you know, and you just, you know, and I was thinking, okay. I said, Ian, I don't understand. I said, if the star sign compatible, like the matching some like compatible star sign is so important to you, why not just use an app that does that for you? Like just go online and find somebody that matches with your star sign. And he was like, never thought of that. So he had an iPhone, I had Android, both went online, and all there was at that time, and this was quite a while ago, by the way, and all there was at that time was like horoscopes and stuff like that. There was no matching element. And I was like, that's really interesting.
I think that is, I mean, I can't believe that didn't exist.
Back, and this was 2000 and when would I have met him? Maybe 17. I think something like that. And when we were out, and I was like, that's really interesting. And he was like, that is quite interesting, isn't it? And he was like, you are up to something, are you? And I was like, my brain's ticking on something. But you know, like I said, Maddie, you have these ideas, but sometimes when you go into it and you delve into it a little bit to see what kind of market there is and stuff like that, sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't. But this seemed like there was a huge market when I delved into it.
So I think it's great.
I thought to myself, you know what, now's the time. I've waited all this time. I've not done anything. I've stayed out of it. You know, you've got all these people around you that are really into it and always been on you about it, you know. And I don't know, that it was just one of those kind of light bulb moments. No, I'm going to do this. I can do this. And
that's really, really inspiring, and also like really quite cool. So what's next then? What's next? Because I mean, you haven't launched yet, have you?
No, so we were supposed to have the beta ready by the 1st of June, but we've got a bit of a problem with our database at the moment we need to sort out, because what I can't do, I can give it to people now, but the problem is the speed between the way the page, you know, between pages. When you swipe, sometimes it stalls and stuff like that. And I was saying to Parth, who's my tech guy, we can't have that. Even
no, you want to go out with it.
They've got to be able to use it so they can feed us back. And we have a piece of software that we're subscribed to, which feeds us back the errors automatically. Okay. So all people have got to do is use it, and we will get the errors fed back to us. They don't even need to tell us. So I was like, let's just get that problem fixed before we can give it to the beta users. Because we really need to get it out to them, really, so they can start using it. We can error before our first launch that we've scheduled. So yeah, but finances is a problem.
Yeah. So you're looking for investors now?
Yeah, and I've had a few really good conversations. I haven't had a conversation with like angels yet or VCs. But like I say, I have been getting my ducks in a row just in case any pop up while I'm talking.
Well, I can't wait to see the pitch deck. It's very, very exciting. I think there's going to be lots of cool things coming from you, and you know, we're fundraising as well, so I think it may well be that we might cross paths and speak to similar people. It's all about helping each other and collaborating, isn't it? So well, best of luck with it all. How do people find you? As in, like, where's the best place to connect with you?
Email and LinkedIn is the best place. Every spare minute I'm not doing something, LinkedIn's normally open in the corner.
Yeah, LinkedIn's the best. Oh, well, it's been really nice to have you on. Wishing you the best of luck for when you do launch. When you do, maybe we could get you back on, and you know, we could talk about how it's all going and stuff.
You're doing good things as well. People are talking about you as well, even at the incubator. Yeah, even I was speaking to Danielle Wellington, who's doing the Flock Here app.
Yes.
And Maddy, yeah, she's everywhere.
Oh, well, I do try. I mean, like, yeah, I can't really be a visibility coach who's not very visible, so all over the place. Well, it's been great having you on today. If anybody is listening to this episode in Spotify or Apple Music, you are in the wrong place. You need to be watching the videos so that you can see everybody's lovely expressions in the Mad About Money app. If you haven't heard of it already, the Mad About Money app is a social finance platform which helps people with their personal finances, but also helps entrepreneurs to get new ideas, find side hustles and stuff like that as well. So it's been great having Gavin on today. We've got loads of great guests lined up for future episodes, so make sure that you subscribe. And of course, we are still looking for sponsors, so if you're interested in sponsoring an episode or sponsoring a series, do get in touch. I'm Maddy Alexander-Grout, and this has been Mad About Money. We'll see you next time.